Hello, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to the course on forensic science. Just before we get into the course, I would just like to give you an introduction about Legal Specs. Legal Specs is a community of law aficionados, and we are scattered throughout the country. And we believe that law should be available to everyone, which is as is stated in the spirit of the Constitution. We provide a wide range of uh, legal possibilities like internships, courses, webinars, seminars, legal contests. We have legal notes also, and we also try to teach the students certain life skills as well, like research, mooting, so on and so forth. And this is done so that their legal competency becomes better in this highly competitive environment. Our main motto is lawyers in the making, and our main purpose is to give all and to make sure that everyone has high quality material, both practical and intellectual. Now, we have come into collaboration with CC. So the Ma'am, am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible, Preksha. Please go ahead.
Now you are mute.
Sorry, am I audible now, man?
Yeah, you are. Please.
Okay. Okay, ma'am. Just 1 second. I think my laptop's hanging in a minute. 1 second. Okay. Am I audible now?
Yes, you are.
Okay, ma'am.
Yes, you are.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Legal Specs has come into collaboration with CCIFS, the full form of which is Center for Criminal Investigation and Foreign Sciences, which is an institute of eminence and is managed by Tabish Sarosh, OPC Private Limited. We have mentors from the CCIFS. I would request Arpita ma'am to take over. Thank you.
Thank you, Preksha. A very good evening to everyone present. As the head of the Department of Forensic Science at Center for Criminal Investigation and Forensic Science, CCIFS, it is my distinct honor and privilege to welcome you all to today's webinar on basics of forensic science, understanding DNA, a topic of paramount importance in the field of forensic science. So, with over 15 years of experience in law, justice administration, and forensic science, our founder, Mr. Tabish Narosh, is a seasoned legal professional, currently serving as legal consultant with Gallipolis and also as professor of practice at the Lloyd Institute of Forensic Science. At CCIFS, our mission is to sensitize students and professionals in the criminal justice system about the intricacies of forensic science, equipping them with the knowledge and skills necessary to excel in their respective roles. So, through our various courses and capacity building programs, we strive to bridge the gap between theory and practice. So, in this regard, we offer several foundational certificate courses and PG diploma courses in forensic science, forensic nursing, digital forensics, and cyber forensics at reputed universities such as Jamia Hamdard, Christ University, OP Jindal, CPJ College, Integral, Lloyd, Royal College, and others. So, our collaboration with Legal Specs marks another step towards our objective of bringing these courses to an online platform to better serve you all, our students and professionals. So, as you all must be aware, the Bharatiya Nagarik Suraksha Sanhita 2023 has made forensic investigation mandatory for offenses with 7 or more years of imprisonment. So, forensic science is going to have an imperative place in your academic and professional life. So, this was a little bit about my organization. Moving ahead with this session, today we are truly honored to be graced by the presence of our resource person, Ms. Pallavi Malik. Ma'am is serving as Assistant Forensic Officer at Bureau of Investigation, Punjab Police. With her wealth of knowledge and experience, ma'am has solved various cases pertaining to DNA in CFSL Chandigarh and FSL Punjab. Uh, Her dedication and passion for forensic science have made her a trailblazer in the field, and we are fortunate to have her share her insight with us today. At this point of time, I would also like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to Ms. Malik for graciously accepting our invitation. Your insights will be invaluable for all our participants, and we are immensely grateful to have you amongst us. Um I would also like to thank all our participants for joining us in today's webinar. Being a Sunday evening and an IPL match going on, your presence here speaks a lot about you all. Um, I encourage each of you to actively engage in today's webinar. Let's not keep our thinking brain off. And ask questions, share your thoughts and experiences. So, without further ado, I give the platform to Pallavi ma'am. So, over to you, ma'am.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you all are doing good. Thank you for having me here. I hope I'm audible to everybody.
Yes, you are, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am, you are.
Right. Welcome, everyone. So I'm really grateful for CCIFS and Legal Specs for extending their invitation on a weekend. And I'm also thankful for all the participants who are joining in. So I would be speaking about forensic and the DNA, basically the DNA examination and how is it, important? Why is it important in the field of forensic science? How is DNA impacting the current course of investigation, and how is it going to impact the future advancement in the field of investigation? So we'll start with discussing a bit basics about the forensic science. Forensic basically is just jack of all and master of none, as we used to be told by our faculty members. So you are supposed to know everything, but you can't be a master at anything of it, because being a forensic scientist or being an investigator, you can't just limit yourself into a particular single field of investigation. You have to know the basics of investigation regarding all the aspects that are present, be it physical sciences, be it biological sciences, be it fingerprint science or handwriting. And nowadays, with the advancements and with the increase in the nature and diversity of crime, even engineering, nursing, and all these things, you have to have a knowledge of everything. So forensic science is basically application of all the principles of natural sciences, and you take these principles, you apply it to the field of investigation to bring out a scientific outcome and a scientific proof that is going to assist the investigators and the criminal justice system for proper imparting of justice, for catching the criminals or the offenders or the suspects, and ultimately giving justice to the victims, right? So forensic is not rocket science. If you say it in a layman's language, it is just the science of common sense, and common sense is not so common, right? So forensic science basically works on five basic principles, which I'll be just discussing in a very short way. So basics the basic principle on which we follow forensic is the law of exchange, which was given by Sir Lockhart, and it states that whenever two things come in mutual contact with each other, there is an exchange, whether and this exchange can be either at macro level or at micro level. So mutual exchange of traces is always taking place. If you're touching a table, you're leaving your sweat behind, and some dust particles or anything that is present on the table is transferring onto your hand. So there's an exchange of traces, and this is the only law on which the entire forensic science is based. DNA, since I have been privileged enough to be associated with all the fields of DNA forensics, I've been an assistant professor, I have worked with the analysis, organizations. I have worked with FSLs where the analysis portion takes place, and currently I'm with the investigating officers who are actually going to the crime scene, and they're collecting evidences. So as per my knowledge and as per my experience, DNA plays a very important role in narrowing down the list of suspects and in bringing you closer to the offender who has committed the particular crime. So, we'll be discussing in a very brief way all the practical aspects that forensic scientists and investigators come across during investigation, during analysis, and during reporting of those cases. So we'll start with what all are the cases where we encounter DNA evidences. We encounter DNA evidences in case of sexual assault and maternity-paternity disputes. Maternity and paternity of the child is in question, or where there has been natural sexual offense or unnatural sexual offense, and there is a presence of semen or saliva or any kind of body fluid which can be a source of DNA. In case of homicides and murders or attempt to homicides, we find body fluids. Most of the cases we find blood, and it is a very rich source of DNA. The WPCs in the blood offer a very good quantity and very good quality of DNA during analysis. Human identification in case of mass destructions is also a very good source of DNA evidence, and in such cases, we prefer collecting hard parts of the body like bone or tooth, so they preserve the DNA and prevent it from degradation. So, in case of human identification and mass destruction, we prefer such samples. So, we owe our gratitude to Sir Alex Jeffries because he has been the father of human genetics and human DNA fingerprinting, basically. In the case of investigation, this DNA fingerprinting breakthrough has played a very important role since the last 4 to 5 decades. And his contemporary, Indian contemporary, Dr. Lalji Singh, was the one who first brought DNA fingerprinting into India in the year 1988. And in 1989, Kerala police were the first police who reported a particular case based on the DNA fingerprinting and DNA profiling. So he is basically known as the father of Indian DNA fingerprinting. So why DNA? Everybody, anybody can ask you this question. What is this first about this DNA? Why are we so focused on DNA profiling and DNA evidences and protecting the DNA evidences at the crime scene rather than going on for the alternative large circumstantial evidences or eyewitnesses at the crime scene? So, like our fingerprint, the DNA of our body in any living cell of our body gives a lot of information about our ethnicity, about our racial affiliations, about our family history. We get half of our set of DNA from our mother and half of the set from the father. So we are a mixture of our parents, and the mixture creates a very unique form of genetic material into our body, which cannot be the same with any other individual on this earth, except, of course, for monozygotic twins, which is a very technical aspect. No other individual can have exactly same DNA fingerprint, right? So this is such a breakthrough for identifying the presence of any suspect at the crime scene. So that is why we are so, hell-bent on DNA evidences and analysis of DNA evidences and proper, report making so that we can reach the suspect easily and without any doubt. Though there is no doubt if that foreign DNA is found at the crime scene, you cannot deny the presence of that suspect at the crime scene, right? So, what are the sources of DNA that can be found at crime scene? The most rich source is blood, And sperm heads in case of sexual assault, saliva is also a very rich source. In case of hair, there are two aspects. If you're getting a hair and you're plucking it out of the living person, you are supposed to have it with roots, because root is the living part and cellular DNA will be extracted from this root part. But no crime scene is ideal. Nobody is going to pluck his or her own hair and leave it for the investigators to say that, oh, come on, I am leaving my hair, please find me and let's see how efficient you are. So most of the crime scenes will have hair which may not have the roots. So in that case, we have an advanced DNA technology which is known as mitochondrial DNA. Mitochondria in all our cells, from those who are from the biology background or have basic interest in biology, they would be knowing that every cell of our body has a mitochondria, which is the powerhouse. And this mitochondria has the maternal set of genes. They have the maternal DNA. So if you get a root at the a hair without the root at the crime scene, you will be able to profile the mitochondrial DNA, and then you can bring down or narrow down the family or of that particular suspect, or you can narrow down the number of the suspect in that case, right? We also have tissues in degraded conditions or in good conditions. Degraded conditions in case where there are mass destructions, or in case where the dead body is found at a very later time, like suppose 1 week has passed and then you are getting the dead body. So the tissues will be, they will be decomposed. So the DNA will also be decomposed. Bone, as I told you earlier, is a very rich source of DNA and it preserves the DNA content, right? So we prefer bone as an DNA evidence for the purpose of analysis in cases where there are factors that might be affecting the quality and quantity of DNA in other body tissues and biological fluids. Teeth and urine. Urine in itself is not an evidence, but there are epithelial cells present in the urine which can be a rich source of DNA in absence of any other body fluids or in absence of any other DNA evidence. So, since you're, more into the law background, I would just briefly tell you the major sections existingly that covers the DNA evidence. So, blood can be found in case of murder, homicide, or grievous hurt, or any heinous crime that are covered under section 302, 304, 307, 320, 326, etc. Right? Semen can be found in case of sexual crimes, which includes 376 and section 377, that is unnatural sexual offences. It includes bestiality, sodomy, and sex with an underage child, or any sexual activity which is against the normal course of nature, right? Saliva is found in case of bite marks, which are predominant in case of sexual assaults, and hair is seen in case of both homicide and the sexual offences, where there is violent exchange between the offender and the victim. When the victim is trying to protect himself or herself and the accused is in fight with him or her, then there are chances that there might be chunks of hair in the hands of the victim or on the clothes of the suspect. Bones in case of mass disaster, plane crash, explosion cases, etc. And urine is also a circumstantial evidence. So I'll not give you a very detailed description of this because this is basically the perspective of a forensic investigator. But I'll tell you that handling of an evidence of DNA is very important. You have to prevent contamination at any cost. If at a crime scene you come across DNA evidences that belong to both the suspect and the victim, at all times you're supposed to ensure that these two evidences do not come in contact with each other. Because if there is a contact, say suppose there is a victim at the crime scene and she is, her family is saying that she has been sexually assaulted, but there is no trace of foreign DNA on her body. There's no semen, there's no saliva. So this would be something that will be helping the accused from preventing the accused from getting wrongful conviction. But by any chance, if you touch the accused sample or accused DNA or evidence, and then without taking proper measures, if you come in contact with the victim's evidences, then there will be transfer of evidence into the victim, and that might result in positive DNA profiles of the male from the female, and then he might be convicted wrongly. So you will always supposed to change your gloves when you are changing evidences while collecting. You're always supposed to use disposable tools, and if not disposable tools, after using or after picking or collecting every evidence, you're supposed to wash it off with 70% alcohol and sanitize every tool before transfer from one evidence to another. Always make sure that while collecting, you do not take that evidence out of the crime scene. You photograph it properly and you bring the container to the evidence and you collect it into that. Right? Do not transport unnecessarily. Do not move the evidence from one place to the other, because that might result in loss of evidence or contamination of evidence. Right? So very quickly, liquid blood is supposed to be collected in EDTA vials, or if you find it at the crime scene, then you're supposed to take a cotton swab and air dry it, not in the sunlight, in a shade, without taking any artificial measures to dry it. Do not use a fan, do not use a cooler, just let it dry naturally under shades. Right? If it's a portable object which is small, you can uh, seal it as a whole and send it to the laboratory. For dried blood stains, you can either use a wet saline swab and take and rub it against the stain and dry it again and package it, or you can chip it off. If it is coming off from the surface, you can chip it off and then transfer it into a paper envelope or a paper bag and then send it to the lab for analysis. For the weapon, you are supposed to send the weapon as a whole. Right? So for tissue and organs, you're supposed to store or preserve it in normal saline and send it, package it in an airtight plastic container, seal it properly, and send it to the lab. Make sure that you nobody is, so as a lawyer, I would, the aspects that I would be looking into when I get the file of the case is whether these measures were ensured by the investigating agencies or the analyzing agencies or not. You're supposed to look into the documentation and see what was the tissue or organ preserved in, whether it was preserved in anything except normal saline. If it is anything except normal saline, then you can always cross question it that for if you're using chemicals like formalin or something, it is an inhibitor for DNA profiling. Then how are you reporting it on the basis of partial profiles that is being received or that is coming out of the analysis procedure? Right, for hair, as I told you, you are supposed to collect it with hair or tissue, keep it refrigerated, and collect it with tweezers. There are instances where the victims or accused, in case of giving reference samples for their DNA profile, they deny the sampling procedure. So in that case, with the fear that needle might hurt me, some people have fear of needles, so they might not be very accommodating about sample collection. So in that case, you can always take a buccal swab. I've just given a picture of the procedure here. You just take a cotton swab, roll it along the internal cheeks of that person, and you can dry it and send it off, and this can be easily taken as a reference sample for DNA profiling of that particular individual. Packaging is also very important. Always remember that biological samples are supposed to be packaged in papers so that there is cross ventilation of air all throughout their transport. So that even if a little bit of moisture is present while you are packaging it through the transport procedure, the ventilation can dry it off and there is no fungal growth and the evidence is not lost due to degradation. For hair and nail clippings, you are supposed to use the druggist fold. This is the six-fold procedure so that any micro evidence is not lost during transportation. So you put the sample like this, fold it like this, and then you put it inside a paper envelope so that it is properly safe. What problems are faced during DNA examination or DNA evidences is that people or investigating officers especially, they are not patient enough to let these samples dry before packing it. So naturally, if anything is wet and you're packing it and you're sealing it, there is bound to be fungal growth. And once fungal growth is eating out on the living aspect or living component of any evidence, the DNA is going to degrade, right? So this is a very common problem that all the forensic labs and all the forensic investigators face in the lab, that the collection of the evidence is not done properly, right? So the object, the nature of the evidence and the object will decide upon what is to be the container of that particular evidence. If it is blood, if it is clothes, or if it is any clothing material which is wet, you're always supposed to package it in paper envelopes or paper bags. And if it is bone or any tissue or in any aspect, suppose urine, which has the fear of leaking out during transportation, you're always supposed to package it in airtight plastic containers and seal it properly so that it does not leak out and it does not destroy the additional evidences that are being sent with it. And if it is hair and nails, you always use plastic ziplocs after sealing it with the druggist code. So why do we package these evidences properly? To prevent contamination, to prevent loss of evidence, to prevent deterioration of the evidence, or to cross out any foul play, any change of evidence during transportation, anybody replacing the samples during transportation. Also to prevent loss of chain of custody, because legally we all know that in case of any scientific evidence, the chain of custody is very important. At all times there has to be a documentary proof about whose custody was the evidence in, whether it was at the police station Malkhana, whether it was in the custody of the investigating officer, whether it was in the custody of any constable or anybody who was transporting it from the police station to the FSL, and till what time was it there at FSL, and who collected it from the FSL and returned it back to the IO. So these things need to be documented properly so that the evidentiary value of the evidence is not lost, right? At all times you are supposed to send off these evidences by properly sealing it with the official seal of that particular agency. The IOs of every police stations have their own seal, the FSL has its own seal. So you are supposed to seal it properly at all the junctures and all the points where there are chances of it being open. So if this is the envelope, the pasting edge needs to be sealed with the tape, and then you put the initials and the seals and the date at on which this was particularly packed and sealed, right? So this is the photograph of an improper sealing. This tape is here, and at any point anybody can put their hand inside and change the nature of evidence or the kind of evidence that is inside, right? This is also improper sealing. This is also improper sealing, and this is also improper sealing. Anyone can open this knot and they can take out the box and replace it with any other box. So you have to seal this at this point. There need to be 3 seals here and 2 seals here, and the sample seal needs to be sent along with the seal impression, so that the investigator at the FSL can check or can match the sample seal with the seals on the parcel and verify whether there has been a foul play or whether this has been said by the authorized personnel or not, right? Labeling needs to be there. You have to address it to the director of the particular FSL, write about the request that you are doing to the lab, what kind of test you want to be done. What kind of test do you want the lab to conduct on the particular sample? The name of the person to which that sample belongs, son of and daughter of, age and gender, FIR number and date, and the contents inside that parcel. So this is the proper way of sealing the envelope. 3 seals are here. So there, even if one seal is broken, you will understand that there has been an attempt to commit foul play, and 2 seals here, right? So these are the samples that, examples of few samples that the lab receives. You can see on the extreme right-hand side that these swabs, they were not sealed before drying. So as a result, there is heavy fungal growth here. And since this is an evidentiary sample, this is lost all its evidentiary value because this fungal growth is going to inhibit the DNA profiling, and then the lab would not be able to report anything on this or comment anything about the profile that has been generated. Chain of custody, we have discussed. There has to be a particular authorized paper that the person needs to bring along with him from the police station to the lab, which needs to have the name of the forwarding authority, his affiliation, their FIR and DDR number, along with the date, what kind of crime was committed, what is the section that is covered in this case, what are the number of parcels that you are sending, what are the contents of the parcel that you are sending, how many seals have you sealed it with, who is the person who is bringing it to the lab, who is the person who was present at the crime scene, where was this particular sample collected from, and all these details need to be present, right? Each page needs to be signed by the SHO, and the forwarding has to be done by the authority of the SSPs or ACPs of that particular area where the crime has been committed, right? For any biological sample, there are a few documents which is mandatory. For sexual assault, you need to have a sexual assault victim information form. For abortion, you need to have an abortus fetus form. For murder and homicide, you're supposed to have a PMR, and MLR in all cases are necessary. For any sample that you're taking from a living individual, you need to have a consent form. That consent is called the biological specimen authentication form, where there needs to be two witnesses who are going to sign that yes, this person had consented for taking his sample and he is willingly given the sample and no force was applied for the purpose of taking sample from him or her. In case of any person who is below 18 years of age, the consent needs to be given by his guardian or parent, right? After the collection procedure, sealing and forwarding of this sample is done, there are few basic steps that is being conducted at the laboratory, which involves the extraction of DNA, then quantifying the amount of DNA present in the sample, amplifying this DNA, separating it, and ultimately creating the DNA profile, which is then matched with the reference sample. And then the lab comments whether this evidentiary sample or the evidentiary DNA profile matches with that of the reference sample, and whether the murder was committed by the suspect or whether there was a presence of foreign DNA in case of sexual assault in the body of the victim, and whether that matches with the suspect or not, right? Basic investigative application of DNA evidence is linking the suspects to the crime scene. This is the very basic need and the very basic role that forensic science plays. It matches the suspect with the crime scene, whether he or she was present at the crime scene or not. And also, see, forensic science is not just about giving punishment to somebody. It is also about saving somebody from false punishment or incorrect punishment. So you're also establishing the innocence of a particular person. You're not just responsible for punishing someone, you're also responsible for saving someone from wrongful punishment. And with the advancement in DNA, there have been a lot of cold cases or old like cases that have been closed, say about 30, 40, 50, or even 10 years back, and they are reopened and reinvestigated, and DNA profiling is run on them by the order of the court. And a lot of cold cases are also solved on the basis of DNA investigation and DNA analysis, right? What are the legal considerations of forensic DNA analysis? So, the first and the foremost is the chain of custody integrity. It is very important to maintain the chain of custody. If at any point this chain of custody is broken, the evidence become inadmissible in the court of law. No matter how scientific it is, no matter how efficiently you have conducted the examination at the lab, how efficiently you have prepared the report. If the chain of custody is broken, if the proper procedure is not followed in the documentation process, it will be inadmissible in court of law at all costs. You have to ensure that whatever sample or whatever analysis procedure or whatever technique you are using is admissible in the court of law. By no means, even if anything new or something very advanced is available in the market, as long as it is not admissible, or as long as its admissibility is not established in the court of law, you cannot report based on such process of analysis. Privacy concerns, of course, as per the DNA Bill 2019, also DNA profile and its database creates a big privacy issue, because as per our constitutional right, especially the right to privacy, DNA profile of an individual is a privacy aspect. So you have to ensure that this privacy was not breached. This privacy was maintained at all cost, at all procedures, and at all steps of analysis and collection and further processing of the DNA samples. And it is also governed by the data protection laws that is prevalent in our country. With the advancements, day to day, new techniques are coming. Nature of crime is changing, nature of investigation is changing, and nature of analysis is changing. So, in the very near future, we will be seeing a few new techniques which involves next generation sequencing. Right now, as per combined DNA index system, which is known as CODIS in the short form, we are working on 26 prominent markers in our DNA and plus one, which is the amylogenin. So 26 plus one markers are being analyzed, and the report is being given, profile is being generated based on only these 26 plus one markers. But with the development of next generation sequencing, nucleotide by nucleotide, or say suppose our DNA is made up of small chemicals, so this chemical by chemical sequencing of the entire DNA of the human can be done. And in very near future, we'll be seeing DNA profiles based on next generation sequencing, and these marker based reports will be going obsolete. Rapid DNA analysis is also there, touch DNA, where you can just pick up DNA of suppose the skin is shedding, people are shedding their skin, sweat, whenever they're sneezing, or even when they're breathing, they're letting out DNA into the air. So, with rapid DNA technologies and touch DNA technologies, even these can be detected and analyzed in the very near future. And for that, also, you don't have to go to the lab. We will be having instruments which will be helping us create DNA profiles and database exactly at the crime scene. So, you don't have to wait for a long time. You can, instantly get the profile, and if the database is generated in our country, you can easily, link it with the repeat offenders or the already existing database of offenders that is present with the investigating agencies. And automation, of course. Initially, we used to take 2 days to extract one DNA sample. And now, with automation, within 40 minutes, it is possible to extract 15 to 20 DNA samples easily. So automation has reduced the time and increased the efficiency over the manual handling of the evidence, and reporting of the cases and evidences is more frequent, right? So this was the basic idea about DNA. If anybody has any question, they can ask, and we'll briefly discuss about 2, 3 very famous cases that were solved on the basis of DNA. I would like to ask if anybody has any query, and then we'll quickly discuss. I'll ask you what idea you have about that particular case. Anyone has any query or question? Any doubt?
Hello, madam. Am I audible?
Yes.
No, what are the consequences of DNA report while examining the court of law?
What are the consequences of DNA report? DNA is just like fingerprint.
What are the delay consequence?
Delay consequence as in, how are you asking me the delay? So there are different aspects of delay. The evidence reached the lab late, the evidence was collected late, the report was given late. See, as per the new laws for POXO cases, it cannot be late by 60 days. So for fast track course, you have to submit that report within that particular stipulated time. So there cannot be any negative consequence of that. Yes, but in case the victim is coming to the police late, say DNA properly can be analyzed if you are reaching the investigating officer within 72 hours of that particular offense. Right. If you come, say, around 2 to 3 months after that incident has happened with you, then of course the delay of examination will be there from the incident. I'm talking from the incident. If the report is submitted properly and there is a time bound guideline to submit that report within a period of 2 months, I don't think the lab is going to do any delay in that case. Again, it is all about
depend upon the NDPSP Act and POSCO case are they're very different.
NDPS Act is absolutely different aspect. NDPS, we don't get DNA mostly in case of NDPS. NDPS cases mostly has the blood examination only, where you are testing the the metabolites of the original drug that was taken in. Right? You do not create DNA profile for NDPS cases. I'm talking about DNA samples which are prevalent in case of mass disasters, murder, homicide, and sexual offences mostly. And nowadays, mostly in case of sexual offences and POXO cases.
In POSCO case, there is only 60 days or 25 days.
60 days, which can be extended up to 90 days, but that again is the time given to the investigating agency and the lab to submit the report. If the offender or the victim is coming at a later age, then that time also will not be fruitful for the victim.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, thank you.
Well, anybody else? Yes, ma'am. Yes, you are. But if you could speak a little more loudly.
Yes, ma'am. I have a question regarding you have mentioned about some bill which made it more prominent regarding taking samples. Could you please tell me about
that? Sorry, I didn't get you. What exactly do you want to know?
Ma'am, you have mentioned about some bill.
Some what?
Hello?
Hanji, yeah.
Yes, you are asking you mentioned about some bill which made changes to in taking collection
it is not a bill. No, it's not the bill. Bill has not changed the sample collection. Bill has made it mandatory to create a DNA database of our country so that any offender which is present in suppose Punjab, and if he goes to Kerala and commits a crime, it is easy to detect him if we have a database. Just like we have a database of our fingerprints as National Crime Records Bureau, the bill is facilitating the creation of a DNA database. It is all about DNA regulation Bill 2019. It has nothing to do with the collection procedure. The collection of the evidences is decided by Directorate of Forensic Science, DFSS, which is the apex body of our country, which decides all the procedures and protocols for the analysis and collection of evidences. Bill is just regularizing the process of DNA, creating a data bank of DNA profiles, centralizing the investigation procedures, centralizing all the profiles that all different state labs are creating, centralizing the criminal database of our country. That is all the DNA bill is doing. Is it clear, ma'am? Did you get my... are you satisfied with the answer? Okay. Anybody else? I guess I'm getting a lot of... Yes.
Good evening, ma'am. This is Malik. I want to ask the question that can we extract DNA samples from 10-year-old or 20-year-old decayed and decomposed dead skeleton of human beings?
Yes, we can. but the nature of the profile depends on how well the bones have been able to preserve the DNA in the marrow. Because there is a stream of forensic anthropology, sorry, not anthropology, forensic archaeology, which has also extracted DNA for hundreds of years of old skeleton. Right, so it is possible. As I told you, bone is very hard. Enamel is very hard, and it is able to preserve DNA for a long time.
Okay, ma'am. You mean that bone is the only thing from where we can extract the DNA?
No, I am not. No, I've given you a set of all the places from where DNA can be extracted. What I'm trying to say, in cases where, see, our body is prone to decomposition, the tissues will decompose, but the teeth, the skeleton remains for a long time, and so since the outer skeleton is intact for a long time, the marrow is there. It is, you can extract DNA from bone which are hundreds of years old. It's not that it's the only place, but it is one of the best source of DNA in cases where decomposition of body has taken place.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Right. So,
Good evening, ma'am.
Yes.
नमस्ते मैम.
Namaste.
मैम मेरा क्वेश्चन था मैम, रोल ऑफ द फॉरेंसिक एग्जामिनर इन द जुडिशियल सिस्टम मैम.
क्या जानना चाहते हैं इसके, मतलब what is the aspect that you want to know? As I told you, DNA is very important in investigation and judicial system also. मतलब अगर आपको जजमेंट, आपको किसी को अगर wrongful conviction से बचाना है या आपको किसी को पकड़वाना है, तो DNA और फिंगरप्रिंट बेसिकली सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट ऐसी साइंस है जो नैरो डाउन कर सकती है सस्पेक्ट को. तो जुडिशियल पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. बट अगेन, प्रोविजंस क्या है, हमारे एडमिसिबिलिटी क्या है, किस केसेस में एडमिसिबिलिटी होती है, पेपर वर्क प्रॉपरली किया गया है या नहीं, इन्वेस्टिगेटिंग एजेंसी ने कलेक्शन ऑफ एविडेंस की डॉक्यूमेंटेशन की है या नहीं, चेन ऑफ कस्टडी मेंटेन की है या नहीं, एनालिसिस प्रॉपरली हुआ है या नहीं, और रिपोर्ट जो है वो कंपिटेंट अथॉरिटी ने प्रॉपरली दी है या नहीं, वो सारी चीजें जुडिशियल को फाइनली उसको आपको अल्टीमेटली उसकी एविडेंशियरी वैल्यू कोर्ट में प्रूव करनी होती है. द ट्रायल कोर्ट नीड्स टू असेस whether the report given by the expert is admissible and proper in nature or not. तो किस तरीके से आप जानना चाहते हैं कि जुडिशरी में क्या रोल है डीएनए का?
यस मैम. मैम मैं ये जानना चाहता हूँ मैम, रॉन्गफुल में मैम रोल ऑफ द फॉरेंसिक साइंस मैम, साइबर फॉरेंसिक्स है मैम, उसमें मैम फॉरेंसिक साइंस का क्या रोल है मैम?
साइबर में तो फोरेंसिक साइंस बहुत ही इंपॉर्टेंट है. लाइक डिजिटल एविडेंस इज ऑलवेज लीविंग अ डिजिटल इम्प्रिंट बिहाइंड, और आईपी एड्रेस और उन सारी चीजों से बहुत इजीली ट्रैक हो सकता है. ऑब्वियसली डिजिटल एंड साइबर फोरेंसिक इज नॉट माय फोर्टे. रॉन्गफुल में मैं आपको एग्जांपल दे सकती हूँ. देयर वाज दिस केस ऑफ शाइनी आहूजा, जिसमें उसकी मेड के साथ रेप करने का एक उस पे एक्यूजेशन हुआ था. तो उसमें जो उसकी मेड थी, उन्होंने बोला था जाके कि मेरे साथ उन्होंने ऐसा कुछ भी नहीं किया है, फिर भी उनको 7 साल की जेल सजा दे दी गई थी. सो ही वाज कन्विक्टेड फॉर 7 years फॉर अ पनिशमेंट ऑफ 7 years by the statement of a neighbor that his maid was having disheveled hair when she came down the stairs and she had her cloth broken, right? The cloth torn, not broken, I'm sorry. So on the basis of that, the court convicted Shaini Ahuja that he has committed rape and he should be jailed. But then when the statement of that maid was taken, she said, no, he has not done anything with me. I was on the phone with somebody else when this accusation was made. The accusation was that the rape was committed with her in between 3:15 to 3:45 p.m. But she was on the phone with some third person during that time. And the chain of custody was not maintained on DNA samples. The vaginal swabs that were taken did not show signs of any DNA belonging to Shaini Ahuja. Only the glass slide that was taken was positive for DNA, and there was no document that was showing in whose custody those evidences were, where those evidences were collected from, who had transported it from the crime scene to the lab, and no proper documentation was given. Even the IO said that he did not check the call details, and when after the order of the court, the CCTV was checked, it was seen that the maid was coming down of the stairs very normally. There was no disheveled hair, there was no torn clothes, and she was normally walking down. So ultimately, he was said that he is innocent. The court said that Shiny Oja is innocent, and he was released from the court. So this is how scientific evidence or lack of scientific evidence or lack of following the proper procedure helps in preventing wrongful conviction. Also, for cyber, I am not the right person to ask this question. Anybody else?
Thank you, ma'am.
Anybody else?
Ma'am, can I get the PPT, ma'am?
You need to discuss this with your moderator. So,
Okay,
can have a discussion. Yeah. Anybody else?
Ma'am, we have a question in a message box that
Okay.
Adarsh, what is the present role of DNA in determining paternity?
So in Punjab, there are a lot of paternity cases that we are getting in our labs, and these are done on the order from the court. So directly, nobody can come and say that please conduct my paternity test to the government organization. There are a lot of private organizations that are conducting DNA tests, but their reports admissibility is not, much in the court of law. So if the father or the mother is claiming or complaining about something, they file that complaint and then they go to the local magistrate, and if he orders or if the court orders conduction of DNA examination, then the samples of a mother, father and the child is sent, the profiles are created, they are matched, and ultimately the lab reports that whether the child belongs to the father or not. Right. So it is there in Punjab. We are having a lot of cases. I don't know about what is the status of paternity testing or maternity testing in other states.
I feel we should continue with the rest of the section. We can take questions later on at the end. Yeah.
Yeah. So just quickly, I'll share with you a very recent case. This is the case of Shraddha Walker murder. So she was in relationship with Aftab Poonawala through a social media app, Bumble, and they later fell in love against her family. They started living together. And on the evening of May 18th, 2022, her boyfriend strangulated Walker and subsequently bought a saw and cut her body into 17 pieces to destroy the evidence. The very next day, he purchased a new fridge and stored all these pieces into it so that there is no smell and nobody can detect that there is a dead body or rotting in his house. So over the next 4 to 5 days, he threw these bodies in different areas in Delhi, and he was carrying out his life normally. He was going into Bumble and getting into relationship with more girls. And on November 2022, charge sheet was filed by the police, and the charge sheet was around 6,600 pages long. And when he was arrested, he gave statements of the regions of the localities where he had thrown the pieces of Shraddha. And in 2022 November, the set of bone and hair strands were recovered from forests of Mehrauli. And DNA examination was conducted from these remains with the father, and it was found out to be positive, right? So this is how DNA examination from bone and also hair helped corroborating the evidence with the statement of the accused and other circumstantial evidence, and ultimately, convicting him for his sins. The next case that I would like to discuss is the case of murder of Rajiv Gandhi, where the assassination was done by a blast. The women wore a belt with the bomb, And once the blast took place, the charred or the burnt parts of the body was examined with a little amount of tissue that was adhering to the belt. The profiles were matched, and she was ultimately, identified who she was, what was her ethnicity, where did she belong to. All these details were found out by Dr. Lalji. As I told you, he's the father of Indian DNA fingerprinting, and this examination was done at Center for DNA Fingerprinting, CDFD, Hyderabad. And Sheena Bora series is very famous nowadays. It's on the OTT platform. So Sheena Bora was killed by her mother, Indrani Mukherjee, who claimed that her daughter has gone to USA. And but in 2015 August, there were bone remains found in Maharashtra, Raigad, and when the profiling was done and matched with Indrani Mukherjee, it was found out that the remains were of Sheena Bora. So these are the very recent and very high-profile cases, both positive and negative, that have been solved on the basis of DNA evidence. So, thank you. We can have another round of questions if somebody wants to ask anything.
Ma'am? Excuse me, ma'am?
Yes?
Ma'am, can we, by any way, DNA can be destroyed or damaged?
It can be, but this is not the right platform to share the intricacies.
Okay, ma'am. Ma'am, as a law student, how can we incorporate the forensic skills in going ahead with our field?
As a forensic professional, as a person who has been in the field of forensic science, and with the advancement and the new laws being introduced, I would suggest all the legal professionals to at least go for a 6-month course in forensic science. Basics of forensic science and DNA needs to be known to all the lawyers, be it government prosecutors or defense lawyers. You need to have the basic scientific knowledge of the evidence. Otherwise, in future, the kind of advancements that we are having, the rate of conviction is going to go down if you're not able to, especially in trial courts, able to cross-examine the experts or the witnesses properly.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Welcome. Anybody else?
Good evening, ma'am. Ma'am, can you suggest some platform for forensic courses?
If we are in association with CCIFS right now, and they are really doing a very good job in not only sensitizing the legal professionals, because their group consists of lawyers and forensic scientists. They are also sensitizing the upcoming youth also, the students who are going to come out and be the young professionals. So they offer varied courses, not just in traditional forensic courses, but also advanced forensic courses like forensic engineering, forensic nursing. Especially in case of sexual assault, every doctor would benefit a lot if they have a forensic specialized nurse with them, handling the victim more efficiently, because the victims who are under trauma, it is very difficult to get samples from them. So somebody needs to be equipped properly for giving them counseling, initial counseling, or making them feel comfortable so that the evidence can be properly collected and their mental trauma can somewhat be reduced, right? So you can contact Arpita ma'am for the courses that are available, especially from, I would like and I would want to see all the lawyers who are there in the country in the next 5 years to have at least the basic 1-year knowledge of all aspects of forensic science, especially DNA and cyber forensics, because this is something that is growing exponentially. Like every other week, every other month, we are finding new techniques and new kind of offenses coming up. So to combat crime, since you are the advocates of the society, you're advocating on both sides, you need to have the investigation knowledge. There are limitations of DNA evidences, but again, this is not the right platform.
Thank you, ma'am.
For anybody who wants to, like this Sheikh Hafsa Anjum, if you want to get into forensic science, you have to do a degree. You have to get into Masters of Forensic Science if you want to properly get into this field. Or if you're a private practitioner, if you want to appear from the side of the defense, then a certificate course is enough for you. Because for defense lawyers, your knowledge and your argument quality is what makes you a good lawyer. Anubhav, there are a lot of limitations, but again, not the right platform. You could connect with me. You can have a word with your moderator, and then we can have a one-on-one conversation if you want to know the details. Otherwise, this is not the right platform. Thank you. I hope we are done. Opportunities for a forensic scientist, the most opportunities that you'll be having will be with the government agencies, because as you know, admissibility and authenticity of the evidence is all with the government organizations. For private, you can offer consultancy to the defense lawyers, or the defense person. I guess that's all for the questions, right? So thank you so much for being such a lovely audience, and thank you CCIFS and Legal Specs for having me here. And this is for the day. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pallavi ma'am. So on behalf of CCIFS and Legal Specs, I extend my sincerest gratitude to Ms. Pallavi Malik ma'am for her enlightening presentation on DNA analysis.